Imagine a young woman, full of ambition and life. Her heart dedicated to helping others, her dreams of becoming a social worker just beginning to take shape. But lurking in the shadows, but too, was a man whose past was stained with violence and crime, free to roam and destroy everything in his path. How did this career criminal, who should have been locked away long ago, take the life of someone who was just starting to live? This is the story of how a career criminal's reign of terror ended in one tragic, heartbreaking moment. A life cut short, a system that failed, and a twist you won't believe. Stay with us as we uncover how this brutal murder led to a shocking battle for justice and the legacy of a 22-year-old whose life was stolen from her. But what happened next would change everything for the families and for a broken system. If you believe that justice should be served, hit subscribe. Only those who think it's okay for criminals to get away will ignore this. Comment, "I stand for justice," if you're tired of criminals like Ryan being allowed to roam free. Share this video with someone who believes the system needs to change. Let's make sure Lily's story is heard. Meet Lily Moore, only 23 years old, yet already a beacon of hope for the community. A kind-hearted, compassionate woman, Lily was studying to become a social worker, working tirelessly to improve the lives of at-risk youth. She was the type of person who believed in second chances, who dedicated her free time to helping those who needed it most. Her smile was infectious, her spirit unbreakable. Lily's background. She was raised in a loving family, surrounded by the warmth of people who nurtured her dreams and aspirations. Her parents, who taught her the importance of empathy, always encouraged her to strive for something meaningful. Her childhood was filled with lessons of kindness and service, and it shaped her into the woman she became, a woman with an unwavering desire to make the world a better place. Lily had a vision, a dream of becoming a social worker, of changing lives for the better. She wanted to help troubled youth find their path, to offer them a second chance, just as she had been given so many times in her life. Her passion was unstoppable. She poured her heart into everything she did, whether it was her studies, her volunteer work, or simply being there for someone who needed a friend. Outside of her academic life, Lily was deeply involved in her community. She volunteered at shelters, giving her time to those who had none. She worked with at-risk youth, offering a listening ear and the kind of support that changed lives. Her compassion knew no bounds. She was more than just a student, she was a source of hope for many. But on one fateful day, that all came to an end. Lily's future was filled with promise, until one fateful day, when her life was cut short by someone who had already destroyed so many others. Her life, full of dreams, suddenly ended. A future so bright, stolen in an instant. But who could have done this? Who was the monster who took her away from the world? The answer was something no one saw coming. Stay with us as we uncover the chilling truth behind Lily's tragic fate. Lily Moore's life was filled with promise. Don't let her story be forgotten. Hit like if you believe in giving victims like her the justice they deserve. Share this video to spread Lily's story. Maybe together we can prevent another tragedy like this. Ryan Graves. His name echoed with fear throughout every neighborhood. A man whose life was marked by violence, with a rap sheet longer than most would believe. 38 arrests, 25 felony charges. And yet, every time he was caught, the system failed to hold him accountable. His violent history wasn't just a string of offenses, it was a pattern that spoke to something deeper, something sinister. Ryan Graves didn't just commit crimes, he reveled in them. He thrived on the chaos he caused and the fear he left in his wake. Every arrest, every conviction, should have been a turning point, a moment for the system to recognize just how dangerous he was. But it never was. Each time, he walked free. Crime number 1. Armed robbery at a convenience store. Ryan, along with 2 accomplices, stormed a local convenience store in the middle of the night. The trio barged in, brandishing guns, their faces hidden beneath masks. The cashier, just a young man, barely out of his teens, was terrified. He froze as Ryan pointed the weapon at him, demanding the money from the register. There was no mercy, no hesitation. It was a cold, calculated robbery. And the young cashier, who had been working late to save for college, would never be the same. The robbery was violent, leaving the cashier shaken, with a lifetime of trauma that no amount of money could heal. Ryan and his accomplices made off with the cash. No one was physically hurt, but the emotional scars would remain forever. When the police caught up to them, Ryan was arrested on charges of armed robbery. But this was where the system showed its first major failure. Ryan was offered a plea deal, a way to avoid the lengthy prison sentence that would come with his crime. His accomplices, too, were given reduced sentences. Why? Because in the eyes of the system, a plea deal was easier than a trial. A quick solution to a growing backlog of cases. Ryan Graves, the career criminal with a violent past, received a sentence that lasted only a few months in prison. And then, just like that, he was free again. 2 violent offenses. And yet, Ryan walked free. Why was the system failing to stop a man who was becoming more dangerous with every release? Crime number 2. Road rage assault. Ryan was known for his temper, a fury that could turn any minor inconvenience into a full-blown violent episode. One day, on the road, Ryan found himself in a minor traffic dispute. The other driver had made an innocent mistake, perhaps cutting him off, perhaps slowing down a bit too much, but it was enough to set Ryan off. He chased the car, pulling up beside the driver, who, unaware of the storm about to break, kept driving. Then, without warning, Ryan's car slammed into the other drivers, forcing them to pull over. Ryan jumped out, his hands clenched in rage. The other driver tried to explain, but Ryan wasn't interested in words. He was out of control. His fists flew with brutal force, dragging the driver out of their car. In a fury, Ryan began to beat the man senseless, punching him repeatedly until the victim collapsed, bloodied and broken. Ryan's rage knew no bounds. The other driver was left with a fractured jaw and several broken ribs. Ryan was arrested once again. But once again, the system failed to take him seriously. A few months in jail, barely enough time for the bruises to heal, and Ryan was back on the streets. This time, he wasn't even concerned about the consequences. He had already learned that the justice system could be bypassed, that the punishment would always be light, no matter the crime. A short sentence, again due to a plea deal. Ryan walked free. 2 violent offenses, one after the other, yet nothing changed. Why? How many times would the system fail to stop him? Ryan had now committed 2 violent crimes and gotten away with both. But his true nature, his insatiable need for violence, was only beginning to show. Soon, he would commit a crime that would be the worst, yet a crime so horrifying that it would change everything. But how would this next crime unfold? Would the system still fail him, or would something finally break the pattern? Stay with us as we uncover the shocking truth behind Ryan Graves' final crime and the innocent life he would destroy. Ryan Graves is a monster who should have been behind bars long ago. Hit subscribe if you think career criminals should face the full consequences of their actions. Comment, "No more second chances," if you agree the system keeps failing by letting people like Ryan out. Share this video to expose the flaws in the system. Let's stand together against criminals like him. As the years went on, Ryan's crimes became more calculated. He grew bolder, and with each offense, the system continued to fail him. Ryan had learned that no matter what he did, there was always a way out. A system that seemed more willing to make excuses than to hold him accountable. His crimes weren't just random outbursts anymore. They were deliberate, carefully planned, and with each one, he pushed the boundaries further. At this point, he wasn't just a criminal. He was a predator, hunting for his next victim. Crime number 3. Home invasion. Ryan and his accomplice had carefully scouted the house, learning the routines of the family who lived there. They knew exactly when they'd be home, when they'd be asleep. It was a late-night break-in just before midnight, when Ryan and his accomplice made their move. The family was fast asleep, unaware that they would soon be awakened by the sound of their front door being shattered. Ryan and his accomplice barged in. Weapons drawn, they made their way through the house, shouting at the terrified family to stay quiet. They bound the parents with rope, forcing them to the ground. and threatened the children with the gun. Ryan wasn't just stealing valuables. He was instilling fear, destroying the peace of an entire household. The family was terrified. The father begged for mercy, offering to give them everything they wanted. But Ryan wasn't interested in negotiations. He wanted control, power. He wanted to prove that no one was safe. While his accomplice ransacked the house, Ryan stood guard over the family, the barrel of his gun pointed at their heads. Every movement was calculated. Every second, a reminder that their lives were hanging by a thread. The police eventually caught wind of the home invasion. The family was shaken, but unharmed physically. Ryan and his accomplice were arrested. But the justice system had learned nothing. Once again, Ryan was offered a plea deal, a chance to reduce his sentence. His lawyer, experienced in these types of cases, negotiated a deal. The charges were reduced, and Ryan, once again, walked free. The violence was escalating, but the justice system remained impotent. How many more victims would Ryan have before the system was forced to act? Crime number 4. Assault at a bar. Ryan's temper was getting worse. What started as minor irritation, someone looking at him the wrong way, a slight misunderstanding, were now becoming triggers for violent outbursts. One night, Ryan walked into a local bar. He was already agitated, looking for a fight, a reason to lash out. He ordered a drink, and everything seemed fine. But then, a disagreement broke out between him and the bartender. It was a trivial matter, something that could have easily been resolved with words. But for Ryan, the situation quickly escalated into something much more dangerous. Ryan didn't just yell. He didn't just argue. In a fit of rage, he attacked the bartender. The victim never saw it coming. Ryan's fists landed with brutal force, and the bartender, an unsuspecting man just doing his job, was knocked to the ground. Ryan wasn't finished. He kicked him, punched him repeatedly, until the man was unconscious. The police arrived soon after. Ryan was arrested, but once again, the system gave him a chance to escape real punishment. Despite the severity of the assault, Ryan was once again given a plea deal, one that led to a much shorter sentence. The court system didn't care about the victims, didn't care about the trauma Ryan was leaving behind. He was allowed to walk free again. With every crime, Ryan's violence escalated. But every time, he found a way to escape real consequences. How many more people would have to suffer before the system realized they were failing? Ryan was becoming more violent with each crime, but no one seemed to be able to stop him. How many more chances would he be given? What would it take for the justice system to finally realize how dangerous he truly was? But the worst was yet to come. One final crime, one that would be the turning point for Ryan and for the system that failed so many. Stay with us as we uncover the shocking events that followed. Every time Ryan's crime escalated, the system failed again. Like this video if you believe it's time for a real change in how violent criminals are treated. Comment, end the cycle, if you believe a career criminal like Ryan shouldn't get another chance to hurt people. Share this video if you're sick of watching the justice system let violent offenders slip through the cracks. Ryan's crimes were becoming more savage, more brutal. Each incident seemed to escalate, from petty thefts to full-blown assaults. And yet, despite his growing list of offenses, the justice system, time and time again, failed to hold him accountable. He had come to believe he was untouchable. The system had let him slip away once before, and now he was emboldened. He knew there were no real consequences waiting for him. But this time it would be different. This time his actions would catch up with him. But not before one final, chilling act. Crime number 5. Robbery with aggravated assault. It was another night. Ryan and his accomplice targeted another home, carefully planning the break-in. They knew the family's routines, their weaknesses, and how to strike when no one would expect it. They snuck through the yard, avoiding detection. When they reached the door, it was just a matter of breaking in. The moment the door crashed open, the family was thrown into chaos. Ryan and his accomplice barged into the house, terrifying the homeowners, demanding money, valuables, anything of worth. They tied up the family, holding them at gunpoint, forcing them to watch as their home was ransacked. But it wasn't just about the money. Ryan was enjoying the power. He was in control now, and the fear in their eyes only fueled his adrenaline. Ryan had become a master at controlling situations. He was cold, calculating. The family cowered, helpless. The father begged for mercy, offering everything he had. But Ryan wasn't interested in mercy. He had none to offer. He was enjoying the control, the fear he could instill. As the accomplice took what they could, Ryan stood guard, watching the victims with cold, calculating eyes. It wasn't enough to steal their possessions. He wanted to break them, to remind them that in his world, they were powerless. Eventually, the authorities were called. The family was shaken, but physically unharmed. Ryan and his accomplice were arrested, but once again the justice system failed to deliver any real punishment. A technical error during the police investigation meant that evidence was mishandled. The charges were reduced. Ryan was released. Once again, he walked free. Ryan's spree had reached its peak. He was becoming bolder, more daring with each crime. And yet, the system kept giving him second chances. The question lingered: how many more lives would he ruin before the system would finally acknowledge his violence? The list of Ryan's offenses continued to grow. Assaults, robberies, petty thefts. Each crime was more violent than the last. Each time he was arrested, the system let him go. Ryan was a walking nightmare, leaving destruction in his wake, knowing there would be no real consequences. And yet, there was always one more crime, one more opportunity for him to escape punishment. The authorities were well aware of Ryan's reputation, but they couldn't seem to stop him. Each new crime sent shockwaves through the community, yet each time, Ryan was given a second chance. It seemed as if there was no stopping him. No matter what he did, no matter how violent, he always managed to find a way out. But even Ryan couldn't outrun his destiny forever. He was pushing his luck, but the system had failed him for so long. How much longer could this go on? The next crime would prove to be the one that would change everything for Ryan and for his next victim. But then came the final crime, one that would change everything for Ryan and for his next victim. A crime so violent, so unthinkable, that it would make everyone question how someone like Ryan could have ever been allowed to roam free. Every new crime should have been the last straw for Ryan Graves. Hit subscribe if you think the system should have stopped him long ago. Comment, "Enough is enough," if you're done with hearing about criminals getting away with murder. Share this video, and let's put an end to this madness together. We can raise awareness of the broken system. Stay tuned, because the next chapter in Ryan's life was about to unfold, and it would be his last. It was just another day for Lily Moore. The sun shone through the trees, casting gentle shadows across the sidewalk. Lily had made plans to meet a friend at the local cafe, a simple gathering to catch up, enjoy a cup of coffee, and talk about life. It seemed like a typical day, one she had planned for, one she had looked forward to. Nothing out of the ordinary. But little did Lily know, her life was about to be violently ripped away from her. Lily had no idea that, at that very moment, the man who had slipped through the cracks of the justice system time and time again was about to cross her path. Ryan Graves, fresh from his latest crime, had been on the run. His past was a haunting trail of violence. Every street he walked was haunted by his criminal history, and yet, here he was, free. And Lily, innocently walking to meet a friend, had no idea that she was about to become his next victim. Lily had always been a creature of routine, easy to find, easy to love. She left her apartment, her keys jangling in her pocket, and made her way down the street. The streets were bustling with life, people chatting, children playing, the sound of distant car engines humming. It was a peaceful scene, almost a perfect afternoon. But lurking in the shadows, Ryan Graves was waiting. He had been hiding in plain sight, blending in with the crowd, looking for an opportunity. It wasn't supposed to happen this way. Ryan wasn't supposed to be this bold. But Lily was in the wrong place at the wrong time. As she walked toward the cafe, she passed Ryan, who, having just committed another violent act, was desperate. His eyes locked onto her, and in that moment, something shifted. Ryan's calculating mind saw her as just another target. just another name on his long list of victims. She was perfect for his plans, a young woman, unassuming, unsuspecting. She would be an easy mark. Ryan moved quickly, his steps deliberate, his intentions clear. Lily had no idea that her life was about to end. What was supposed to be an innocent coffee date would become the final chapter of her young life. A brutal act, an untimely end. And all of this could have been prevented if only the justice system had acted earlier. Ryan's mind was racing. He had been on the run for days, evading the authorities after his most recent crime. But now, he saw a different opportunity. An opportunity that wasn't planned, yet it felt all too familiar. He followed Lily quietly, blending in with the crowd. She walked at a comfortable pace, oblivious to the danger that was quickly closing in. Ryan was used to this. His mind was sharp, his movements quick, always calculating the next step. This was what he did. He preyed on the vulnerable, the unsuspecting. He was good at it. The moment Ryan stepped closer to Lily, the world around them seemed to fade away. He tapped her lightly on the shoulder. Startled, Lily turned around. Her face was confused at first, then alarmed when she saw the look in Ryan's eyes. It was the look of someone desperate, someone who had lost all sense of control, a look that spoke volumes of his inner chaos. Ryan didn't say a word. Before she could even react, he grabbed her arm, yanking her to the side, pulling her away from the bustling street. Lily screamed. The sound was drowned out by the noise of the passing cars. Ryan dragged her into an alleyway, hidden from sight, away from help. Ryan's grip tightened. His heart raced not from fear, but from the thrill of control. This was what he was good at, domination. The power to make someone helpless. And Lily, who had only moments ago been full of life and promise, was now reduced to nothing more than an object of his twisted desires. She fought back, struggling to break free. But Ryan's strength was overwhelming. Her heart pounded as she realized the situation she was in. This was no accident. She was a victim of fate, and it had turned on her cruelly. Lily never saw it coming. She was just in the wrong place at the wrong time, caught in the crosshairs of a broken system. Her life, full of promise, was being stolen from her by a man who had already taken so much from so many others. And the tragedy, the horror of it all, was that this could have been prevented. But it wasn't. As Ryan continued to drag her deeper into the alley, his grip tightening, his intentions clearer, Lily's mind raced. She thought of her family, her dreams of helping others, her passion for making a difference. All of it was slipping away. Ryan's steps grew more frantic as the weight of what he was doing seemed to crash down on him. But it didn't stop him. Lily's fate had been sealed the moment Ryan locked eyes on her. She didn't deserve this. None of it made sense. But the truth, the raw and painful truth, was that it wasn't about whether she deserved it. It was about Ryan's violent nature and the failure of the system that allowed him to continue his rampage. The clock was ticking. Every second that passed, Lily's life was slipping further away. Her screams were muffled, her chances for survival growing slimmer with each passing moment. What was Ryan going to do next? And could anyone stop him in time? This was no longer just about a random encounter. It was about Ryan's spiral into chaos and Lily's desperate fight to survive. But in the end, would she? Lily's life was stolen because of a broken system. Like this video, if you think no more innocent lives should be lost due to systemic failures, share this video to keep Lily's story alive. Let's make sure she didn't die in vain. Stay with us as the unimaginable unfolds, because what happens next is beyond comprehension. Lily's murder didn't just break her family's heart, it shattered the peace of an entire community. The vibrant, kind-hearted young woman who had been full of promise was gone in an instant. And the weight of that loss reverberated far beyond her family. Everyone who knew her, who had seen her dreams take shape, felt the devastating void. But Lily's murder also broke something much larger than just hearts. It broke the fragile trust the community had placed in a justice system that had failed her, failed them all. The police sprang into action, launching a full-scale investigation into the brutal crime. They had no idea how deep the story would go or how tangled the web of Ryan Graves' past really was. Ryan Graves had been on the radar of law enforcement for years. His name, already linked to countless violent crimes, was one that caused every officer to take a step back and ask, how did he stay free for so long? Lily Moore's murder, however, forced the system to finally look at Ryan with the scrutiny he had long deserved. For the first time, there was a real chance for accountability. As investigators began combing through the case, they quickly unearthed a chilling pattern. Ryan's criminal history was more than just a string of offenses. It was a map of a man who had been allowed to spiral out of control, unchecked by the law. Armed robbery, assault, home invasion, each crime more violent than the last. Each time, Ryan had slipped through the cracks, either through plea deals or legal technicalities. But now, his history couldn't be ignored. The police were forced to confront what they had long avoided, the reality that the system had failed Lily and countless other victims before her. The wheels of justice were finally turning. But the question remained, could this time be different? Could Ryan's past of unchecked violence finally lead to real consequences? Or would the system find a way to let him slip through once again? As the investigation into Ryan's past intensified, the media began picking up the story. Every news outlet in the country covered Lily's case, her family's grief, the shock of her brutal murder, and the systemic failure that had allowed it to happen. Lily's story quickly became a rallying cry for those who had seen enough. The public was outraged, not just by the murder, but by the glaring injustice of it all. How many victims had to die before the justice system took action? How many second chances would a man like Ryan Graves be given? Lily's family, devastated by their loss, were determined not to let her death be just another statistic. They had to fight not just for Lily, but for every person who had ever been failed by the system, every victim whose cries for help had gone unheard. And they were not alone. Protests erupted across the country. People took to the streets, demanding justice not just for Lily, but for all those who had suffered because the justice system had failed them. The family's fight for justice became a movement. What started as a small family's plea for accountability quickly gained momentum, turning into a nationwide call for reform. The public's outrage was palpable. People from all walks of life were now standing up, speaking out. They weren't just angry, they were determined. But what would it take to finally bring about change? Could this be the moment the system took responsibility for its failures? Could Lily's death be the tipping point, the moment that sparked real, lasting reform? The public was restless, demanding answers. Could the tide be turning in favor of justice? Would the people's outcry be enough to finally force the system to act? But even as pressure mounted, there were those who were still unwilling to confront the truth. Those who preferred to let the system remain as it was, broken, ineffective, and unjust. Would those voices of resistance hold sway? Or would Lily's story ignite the fire needed to force change? The investigation was just beginning, but the deeper the police dug into Ryan's past, the more horrifying the truth became. But would they find the evidence they needed to finally stop him? Could the public outcry actually lead to real change? Or would it become another forgotten moment in a long list of failed promises? As Lily's family fought tirelessly, the question remained, would the justice system finally rise to the occasion? Or would Ryan Graves walk free once again? Stay with us, because the next chapter in this case will reveal the truth that shocked the nation. Driven by their grief, Lily's parents began a relentless campaign for justice, not just for their daughter, but for every victim who had been failed by the system. Every night, they would lie awake, haunted by the loss of their beautiful daughter, imagining all the moments she would never experience. But amidst their grief, one thing was clear: they would not let her death be in vain. They couldn't. They began what would become a tireless crusade, a fight to hold the justice system accountable for its failure, a fight to ensure no other family would have to suffer as they did. Lily's parents, once ordinary people with quiet lives, were now at the forefront of a movement. They started lobbying for what would come to be known as Lily's Law, a new legislative push aimed at keeping career criminals like Ryan Graves off the streets for good. The law would close the loopholes that allowed criminals like Ryan to commit violent crimes, only to be set free again and again. It would mandate tougher sentences for repeat offenders and ensure that parole was not an option for those with violent histories. But getting the law passed would not be easy. The push for Lily's Law quickly gained national attention, but the road to justice was not simple. In the halls of power, the debate raged. Some legislators supported the new law, believing it was time to finally hold criminals accountable. But others, entrenched in the old ways of doing things, fought back, arguing that it would be too harsh, that it would disrupt the delicate balance of the system. Lily's family faced opposition from every angle, from politicians who resisted change to law enforcement who had been part of the system's failures. But they pressed on. Lily's parents met with lawmakers, spoke to the media, and used every ounce of their pain as fuel to push forward. They shared their story in front of the cameras, hoping to reach the hearts of those who could make a difference. With each public appearance, their resolve grew stronger, but the backlash was fierce. Ryan's supporters, those who believed in the leniency of the justice system, were vocal in their opposition. They argued that Lily's parents were using their grief as a weapon, pushing an agenda that would make the system too harsh, too unforgiving. But what choice did Lily's parents have? They had to do something. They couldn't let their daughter's death be just another case of a system too broken to repair. Lily's parents were determined, but the fight for justice was only beginning. Could they convince the lawmakers to make the changes needed? Could their passion for change overpower the resistance that stood in their way? As the nation watched, the stakes only grew higher. The public's pressure was mounting, but so was the resistance. Would the fight for Lily's Law succeed, or would it fade into the background, like so many other attempts for reform? Meanwhile, Ryan Graves' trial was underway, and it had become a media frenzy. Every detail of the case was dissected, every word spoken in the courtroom scrutinized by the public. The world watched as Ryan's past was brought to light, his violent history, his many failed opportunities to be locked away for good. The court was filled with tension, and every moment seemed to carry more weight than the last. Ryan's defense team tried to make their case, arguing that he had been misunderstood, that his actions were a result of his upbringing and his circumstances. But the evidence was damning. His long history of violence, the countless opportunities the justice system had given him to slip through the cracks, all pointed to one undeniable truth. Ryan Graves had been allowed to keep committing crimes because the system had failed to stop him. With each passing day of the trial, the truth came closer to the surface. Would Ryan finally be held accountable? Or would his long history of escaping justice give him yet another chance to slip away? As the trial neared its conclusion, Lily's family and the entire nation held their breath. Outside the courtroom, the pressure was mounting. The public was demanding answers. The media coverage was relentless, with every outlet covering every twist in the case. Lily's family was now the face of a nationwide movement, one that called for change, one that demanded the justice system stop letting career criminals like Ryan Graves get away with murder. But would it be enough? The clock was ticking. Ryan's trial was nearing its end, and everyone was waiting to see if the system would finally do what it had failed to do so many times before. Lily's family was exhausted. The fight had taken its toll on them emotionally and physically, but they couldn't stop. They had come too far. They had to see this through. Their message was clear. Lily's Law was about more than just punishing Ryan Graves. It was about creating a system that would protect people like their daughter from ever having to face a man like him again. And as they fought for change, they couldn't help but wonder, could the system truly change? Could Lily's Law be the start of something bigger? Or would it be another failed attempt to fix a broken system? With every passing day, the tension only grew. The public was ready for change, but was the system? Would the fight for justice lead to real reform, or would Ryan Graves' history of escaping the law continue? The battle was far from over, but as the trial neared its conclusion, it was clear that something had to give. The question remained, would justice finally be served? Would Lily's legacy be the spark that ignited real change? Or would the system remain just as broken as it always had been? As the trial reached its final days, the fate of Ryan Graves hung in the balance. Would Lily's parents finally get the justice they deserved? Or would the system fail them once more? Stay with us, because the next chapter will reveal what happened next, and whether or not Lily's death would bring about the change we've all been waiting for. The fight for justice was not easy. The political resistance was fierce, and every victory felt like a hard-earned one. Lily's parents, the heartbroken warriors behind this movement, faced more obstacles than they had anticipated. They had awakened a sleeping giant, one that was deeply rooted in the justice system, and they were now pushing against years of legal complacency. Lily's death had sparked something within the public. People were angry. They were outraged that a man like Ryan Graves had been allowed to slip through the cracks time and time again, leaving a trail of destruction behind him. And yet, the more the public demanded change, the more the political elite resisted it. Lily's Law was beginning to gain real traction. It wasn't just a piece of legislation anymore. It had become a symbol, a battle cry for anyone who had ever been failed by the justice system. Every rally, every protest, and every voice that joined the cause added another layer of pressure on the lawmakers. But this wasn't just about punishing Ryan Graves anymore. It was about fixing the system that had allowed him to continue his reign of terror. It was about ensuring that victims like Lily never had to face the same fate again. Yet, despite the growing public support, there was an unsettling undercurrent that couldn't be ignored: political pushback. Lily's Law wasn't a simple fix. It wasn't just about locking criminals like Ryan Graves away for good. It was about overhauling a broken system, a system that had repeatedly failed to protect the most vulnerable. In the halls of Congress, in the offices of those who were supposed to represent the people, there were whispered conversations about Lily's Law. Some lawmakers agreed with the public outcry, believing that the justice system needed a fundamental change. But for others, the idea of creating stricter laws that would lock away career criminals for good was a threat to the established order. They feared that Lily's Law would tip the balance too far, creating a system where redemption was no longer an option, where those who made mistakes, no matter how severe, were locked away forever. And for others, it was simply about politics. They weren't interested in justice for Lily. They were interested in their own political careers, in keeping the status quo intact, and in keeping the powerful in control. As Lily's Law gained attention, it quickly became clear that the battle would not just be a legal one, it would be political. The law's opponents, including well-funded lobbyists and influential politicians, worked tirelessly to dilute the bill, to push it into obscurity. The debate over Lily's Law became a clash of ideologies. On one side, you had families like Lily's, fighting for a system that could no longer ignore the dangerous career criminals who slipped through every crack in the system. On the other side, you had a deeply entrenched system that believed in rehabilitation, second chances, and the delicate balance of the criminal justice system. But Lily's parents refused to back down. They had already lost their daughter to a system that had failed her, and they wouldn't allow it to fail others. Could this campaign actually lead to meaningful reform? Or would the system remain unchanged, allowing another tragedy to unfold? Lily's family, the very people who had lost so much, were now the driving force behind a movement that could change the course of justice forever. But would it be enough? As the political resistance mounted, Lily's parents took their fight to the public. They began appearing on television, speaking at rallies, and using every platform available to them to push for Lily's Law. They were joined by victims' rights organizations, social justice advocates, and a growing number of supporters who had become just as fed up with the broken system as they were. The media, once focused solely on the pain of their personal loss, now began to see Lily's parents not just as grieving individuals, but as advocates for change. Their grief had transformed into a powerful force for reform, but not everyone was convinced. Some saw them as emotional, driven by the raw pain of losing a child, while others feared the potential consequences of a law that would lock away repeat offenders for life. The lines were drawn, and the fight became a battle for the soul of the justice system. But amidst all this chaos, one thing became undeniable. The momentum for change was growing. Despite the resistance, the campaign for Lily's Law began to shift the conversation. People began to realize that it wasn't just about one man or one case. It was about a systemic issue that needed to be addressed. The cries for reform were no longer just coming from Lily's family, but from communities across the country who had also been failed by a justice system that allowed violent criminals to go free, time and time again. People began to realize that if the system didn't change, more innocent lives would be lost. But as the fight for Lily's Law gained momentum, Ryan Graves remained a symbol of everything that was wrong with the system. His continued freedom became a rallying cry for the movement, but there was still so much work to be done. Could the tide of public opinion actually force lawmakers to take action, or would the system's deep-rooted resistance prove too powerful to overcome? With each passing day, the pressure mounted. The campaign for Lily's Law became a national movement. Rallies, petitions, and social media campaigns flooded the public sphere. People from all walks of life, families, victims, advocates, came together in support of the bill. But even as the public outcry grew louder, the resistance didn't let up. Behind closed doors, those who opposed the bill were working hard to weaken it, to delay its passage. They argued that the law would lead to over-incarceration and an unjust system that didn't allow for second chances. As the debate raged, Lily's parents fought tirelessly, refusing to back down. Every day, they were confronted with obstacles, with lawmakers who refused to listen, with people who refused to understand the depth of the pain they were going through. But they couldn't stop. They had to keep fighting for Lily, for the victims who came before her, and for the ones who would come after. As the battle for Lily's Law reached its climax, the question remained, could the system be reformed? Could this movement, this fight, finally lead to the change that was so desperately needed? Or would it all be in vain, just another failed attempt at justice? The answers, as always, were just out of reach. But one thing was certain, the fight for Lily's Law would not end until the system changed, until the people who had failed her were held accountable. And so, the battle for Lily's Law continued. The next phase of the fight was crucial, and the stakes were higher than ever. Would they succeed in getting the law passed, or would the system prove to be as broken as it had always been? The fight was far from over, but the outcome was still uncertain. Stay with us as we uncover what happened next in this crucial battle for justice. Lily's death sparked a movement that would forever change the conversation about justice, accountability, and the lives of those we lose to a broken system. For months, for years even, her name became a rallying cry, a symbol of everything that was wrong and everything that needed to be fixed. Her murder wasn't just another case, it was a call to arms. A loud, resounding message that reverberated far beyond the confines of the courtroom, far beyond her family's grief. It touched communities, lawmakers, activists, and everyday people who, like Lily, just wanted to make a difference. But, as we've seen, change never comes easily. The battle for Lily's Law was just one part of a much larger war, a war against the ingrained failures of a justice system that, time and time again, had allowed violent criminals to roam free. Lily's family, her parents, her friends, those who loved her fought tirelessly for something they believed in. They didn't fight for a law out of anger, but out of a deep, unyielding need to make sure that no one else would suffer the way they had. It wasn't about revenge. It was about justice. It was about making sure that Lily's Law wouldn't just be a tribute to her, but a life-saving law for others. But here's the reality: change is hard. When the system is this broken, when those in power feel their grip on it slipping, they'll fight back. They'll resist. They'll push for compromise. They'll offer empty promises. And all the while, more lives are at risk. So, what happened next? The fight for Lily's Law didn't stop after her death. The battle was far from over. In fact, it was just beginning. The political resistance didn't let up. It was relentless. With each step forward, there seemed to be 2 steps back. But every protest, every rally, every voice added more fuel to the fire. The world couldn't ignore the failure of the system anymore. Not when Lily's name had become a symbol of the change people were demanding. Her family, the ones who had lost her in the most brutal of ways, didn't back down. They didn't stop pushing for what they knew was right. Every day, they took one more step forward, even when the world seemed determined to hold them back. They were fighting not just for Lily's Law, but for every single person whose life was cut short because of a system that failed to protect them. But while their fight was a testament to their strength, it also made one thing abundantly clear: the fight wasn't over. Not yet. Lily's legacy was more than just a name on a petition. More than just a law in the making, it was the spark that ignited a movement. It was the push that got people to ask themselves, how many more lives must be destroyed before we stop this? Her story became a cautionary tale, a reminder of the failure in the system, and it forced society to ask tough questions about how we treat violent criminals, how we fail victims, and how we move forward. But even with all the outcry, the calls for justice, and the rallies for reform, the system was still fighting back. It wasn't easy to change the laws of a country built on the idea of second chances. Could Lily's law be the turning point? Could this movement, this fight for justice, lead to real, lasting change? The answer was still uncertain. Despite the challenges, despite the resistance, Lily's law wasn't just some fleeting moment, it became a permanent part of the conversation. Even as political opponents tried to twist it, dilute it, or bury it, the force of the people's demand for change couldn't be ignored. The fight wasn't just about locking Ryan Graves away for good, it was about the system that allowed him to continue his reign of terror. It was about the countless other victims, the countless families that had been destroyed by a system that seemed more interested in leniency than justice. And yet, Lily's parents didn't give up. They continued to press on, making sure that the world didn't forget what happened. Making sure that Lily's name wasn't just remembered, but that it was honored. They pushed forward, not just for themselves, but for every person who was failed by the system. But even as they moved closer to victory, the question still lingered. Would it be enough? The fight for justice was far from over. Lily's legacy, while inspiring, was only the beginning of something much larger. Could Lily's law change the system? Could the people's voice make a real difference? Or would the broken system continue to fail those who needed it most? Lily's parents' fight is a testament to the power of love, grief, and unwavering determination. But as we've seen, change isn't always easy. It takes time, it takes struggle, it takes strength. And even then, the outcome isn't guaranteed. The question still stands. Will we see the justice that Lily Moore truly deserved? Will Lily's law pave the way for a better future? Or will we keep failing those who need us the most? The fight continues, and it's far from over. Thank you so much for watching and supporting this journey with us. Your time and attention mean the world, and together, we can keep pushing for change, for justice, and for the legacy of victims like Lily. If you believe in a fair system, one that holds criminals accountable, please hit that subscribe button and join the movement. Like this video if you want to see more stories like this, stories that need to be heard. And don't forget to comment below with your thoughts on the case and the need for reform. Share this video with anyone who needs to hear Lily's story and make sure her fight lives on. Together, we can bring about the change that's long overdue. Once again, thank you for being part of this story and for standing up for justice. If you're passionate about making sure victims like Lily are not forgotten and fighting for a fairer system, check out more of our videos. You'll find more heartbreaking stories, more calls for change, and more moments that will inspire you to make a difference. Hit the notification bell so you never miss an update, because together, we're keeping these stories alive and making sure they never go unheard. Until next time, stay strong, stay committed to justice, and always remember, your voice matters. See you in the next video.